Welcome back to Politics Unfiltered. 2025 has been a wild year in politics. It's been a wild ride. So I want to end this year with somewhat of a recap episode. No, we're not going to go through the 25 worst things that happen in politics or the 25 best things that happen in politics, but I just want to talk about some of the things that has defined politics in America in 2025. Also, I started this podcast this year in 2025, and y'all have stuck with me through the entire year. So it's only right that we end 2025 with season number 25. And as we end the year, though, I want to be abundantly clear about something, because I know that you can listen to this podcast and probably tell which side of the political spectrum I land on. I'm a Democrat, but I'm not here on this podcast. I'm not hosting this podcast as a Democrat. I'm damn sure not hosting this podcast as a Republican. I'm not here as a pundit. I'm not here as an insider or someone pretending to have all of the answers. As we talk about 2025, as we talk about politics in America, I'm here as someone who has lived through this last year. I'm someone who, just like all of you, have some of the same feelings, have experienced politics in this country the same way you did. Confused, frustrated as hell, angry most days, a little bit of hope, exhausted. But at the end of this year, I'm still standing. You're still standing. And together, we're still ready to press forward. And we do that because we know that this was not a normal year in American politics. It was an absolute reckoning. This was the year Americans stopped pretending everything was fine. People just don't think everything's going to be okay anymore. We stopped pretending the system works for everyone. We stopped pretending that our leaders are listening, because they're not. We stopped pretending that the economy makes sense, because it doesn't. We stopped pretending that politics and politicians haven't become disconnected from real life. And whether you voted red, blue, third party, or didn't vote at all, I can almost promise you that throughout 2025, you felt it. You felt it when you went to the gas pump. You felt it at the grocery store. You felt it opening your rent, your mortgage statement, your student loan notice. You felt it when you realized that, hell, your paycheck didn't stretch the way that it used to. And the truth is, it probably never will stretch that far again. 2025 didn't just expose the political divides in this country. It didn't. It exposed hard truths that we've been avoiding for decades. In this end of year recap, we're going to hit rewind. And we're going to talk about some of the most pressing issues, some of the most pressing topics, some of the most pressing agenda items. Not politely, not carefully, but honestly, because that's what I've tried to give you. I'm Hendrell, and this is Politics Unfiltered. First, let me say to all of you who have subscribed to the podcast and have been listening episode after episode, I'm dedicating this year to you. Thanks for rocking with me and being a faithful listener. And if you tune in on YouTube, thanks for being a faithful viewer. In 2026, I'm going to be making some changes to the format of the show. Still going to have substance, still going to be hard truths, but I'm going to be making some changes to the show and to some of the content. Who knows? I may even have some new co-hosts joining the conversation. So keep checking us out. Keep being involved and engaged and willing to listen to varying viewpoints, because that's what's going to make the difference as you start making decisions about where you stand politically. Okay, enough about the show, enough about me. Let's get to the business. Let's get into 2025. Let's recap this year. 2025 marked what I consider the full return of raw power politics in America. Not just politics that's based on ideology, not politics that's based on policy debates, but politics, a type of politics that's strictly based on power. Power over courts, power over agencies, power over narratives, and power over truth itself. This was the year that the American people, Americans in all corners, all across this country, realized something. And what they realized was something that was probably very uncomfortable to a lot of people, especially people who are optimistic or who are hopeful about the future. They realized that the rules are flexible, depending on who holds the pen. They realized that executive authority expanded, that Congress remained paralyzed, the courts became the final battlefield, and institutions, we were told were neutral, revealed very clearly that they had specific preferences. And here's the part nobody wants to say out loud. The American people, the public, in 2025 didn't suddenly lose faith in institutions, in the American political institutions this year. The institutions lost faith with the public. So when people feel the system only works for insiders, donors, lobbyists, big corporations, they don't disengage because they're lazy. They disengage because they feel lied to. Because for too long, too many politicians have actually lied. Too many corporations have actually lied. So in 2025, when they say, oh, these people are radical lunatics or radical liberals, 2025 didn't radicalize the American people. It didn't radicalize Americans. It disillusioned them. And to the politicians who are out there, folks, I want to tell you, to politicians, disillusionment is far more dangerous than anything else. Disillusionment is far more dangerous to them than anything else. But let's talk about the economy because that's a big part of this illusion that they try to make us believe. They kept lying about the economy all of 2025. I mean, lie after lie, because if you listened to the president in official statements, if you listened to Caroline Leavitt, if you listened to Mike Johnson, if you listened to the folks who are calling the shots on the economy in this administration, you'd think everything was great. You'd think money was just flowing out of everyone's bank accounts. You know, they use words like strong indicators, market confidence, positive trends. What the hell does all that mean when you're an average person struggling paycheck to survive? And the American people were asking that question all of 2025. What reality are they living in? But what they fail to realize is that Americans don't live based on the indicators. They don't live based on these public statements that's coming from the folks in Washington. They live in grocery store aisles where prices never came back down. They live in housing markets where ownership became a fantasy. They live in job markets where employment exists, but dignity doesn't. This was the year, 2025 was the year people finally said it out loud. A job is not the same as stability. Period. People are saying that. Who gives a damn about a job when you don't have stability? You can work all day, all week, all year, all 2025, and still be unstable economically. People, look, the reality is, and I don't want to sugarcoat it. People were working sometimes 2 or 3 jobs this year and still falling behind. Money in their savings accounts vanished. Personal debt exploded. And the American dream that we believe can exist, that the American dream that we believe is possible for all of us, shifted from building a future to avoiding collapse. That's where people are in their life. They're not building what they believe is the future that America is supposed to provide. They're simply trying to avoid everything collapsing around them. They don't want to lose their house. They don't want to lose their car. They don't want their credit scores to fall 200 points and not be able to get a loan to put their child through college. That's what the American people are dealing with right now. And yet, in the midst of all of this, if you look at corporate profits in 2025, you'll see that quarter after quarter, they hit record highs. Quarter after quarter, they hit record highs. Executive compensation soared. Stock buybacks flourished. 2025 exposed the big lie at the heart of modern economics. No, growth does not mean shared prosperity. It just doesn't. 2025 has shown us that. And I don't know if it's Trump's 2025 or just the greed of corporations in 2025. But 2025 has also shown that trickle down never trickles. But if you're listening to this podcast, know that the system didn't fail. It performed exactly as designed. 2025 has been the best year for the design of this system. It delivered. To the lobbyists and the corporations and the billionaires who built this system, 2025 delivered for them. Period. Then there was immigration. A few issues defined 2025 like immigration. You know that. It's still defining 2025. Even as we're in the final couple of days of 2025, immigration is still defining the year. And not because Americans are cruel, but because they're simply tired. Tired of chaos masquerading as compassion. This year proved something critical. You can believe in humanity and borders. You can care about migrants and demand order. You can oppose cruelty and oppose dysfunction. But instead, politicians in Washington, let me figure out the best way to say this. Politicians in Washington, instead, they gave Americans, this false choice. Either you're heartless or you're unrealistic when it comes to immigration. Those are the choices that folks in Washington want you to believe. Here's the reality. Most Americans live in the middle somewhere. They live in the middle of watching leaders refuse to fix what they campaign on every cycle, on this immigration issue every cycle. They live somewhere in between that space and a reality of these same leaders not doing anything. So you've got campaign promises that they promise to fix every cycle, and then the reality of not doing anything. And it's left communities feeling overwhelmed. Migrants felt abandoned, and politicians, these unproductive, well-paid, custom suit-wearing clowns. I'm fed up with these folks. They felt untouched. They felt untouched in 2025 because 2025 showed us that immigration isn't broken because it's complicated. It's broken because chaos is politically useful. Now, while Americans struggle at home, while immigration in this country became a hot-button issue, while we lived in fear of what this administration and the members of Congress might do or might not do, while we sat on the edge of our seats, holding our breaths, hoping that the courts would be a stopping point for some of these reckless policies, the world also remained on edge too. Global conflicts dragged on. Alliances that took us decades to build were strained like never before. Tensions escalated every day. And Americans, still to this moment, we are constantly being reminded of a hard truth, that foreign policy is often discussed by people who never pay its price. In our case, military families pay that price. All of us, taxpayers, we pay that price. Communities pay that price. 2025 reinforced a growing belief across party lines. America must be strong, but not reckless. Engaged, but not endless. Principled, principled, but not naive. People want leadership that understands strength isn't measured only in force, but in judgment. So it's not about knocking terrorists, quote unquote, narco terrorist boats out in Caribbean waters. It's not about blowing those boats up or making sure that those people don't go back home to their families. It's measured in the judgment of the leaders who make those decisions. But who's talking about it? Where is that headline? Where is the mainstream media when we need them? I'm also becoming kind of concerned that the media isn't doing enough to elevate and talk about the things that are really happening in this world and impacting the American people. Where in the hell is the mainstream media when we need them? That brings me to my next point. 2025 has shown us that trust in media isn't eroding. It's rapidly collapsing. In 2025, people didn't just stop believing news because they became ignorant. They stopped believing the news because the narratives stopped matching reality. Everything is being framed as a team sport. Every story is coming preloaded with an agenda. Every disagreement is being treated as a moral failure. And social media, when we start adding social media to the mix, that damn sure didn't help in 2025 and is not helping now. It monetized outrage. Anger became profitable. Division became viral. Nuance absolutely disappeared. 2025 has been the year Americans realized being informed doesn't mean being manipulated. And millions of folks on social media, on cable networks, millions of folks quietly checked out. They said, I'm canceling that subscription. I'm deleting that account. And it's not because they didn't care, because they do. It's because they're simply tired of being played, tired of being lied to, tired of being manipulated, tired of being misled. They fled social media sites. They stopped reading the news. They stopped watching the news. And now they're tuning into news sources, tuning into podcasts just like this one. They're tuning in to conversations with community groups at coffee shops. They're on web chat rooms looking for new dialogue and new insight. Folks, this has been one hell of a year. I mean, I don't know if that's an understatement, but this has been one hell of a year in politics. It has been the year that we're seeing come into clear perspective that in this country, we have an emerging political class versus the public dynamic. Not rich versus poor, not the haves versus the have-nots, not just left versus right, not just urban versus rural, not young versus old, none of those things that they always try to tell you what's going on. We have a political class in this country versus the people, versus the public. And it's been the political class versus everyone else, it seems like, on every issue. People have watched politicians trade accusations while simply ignoring solutions. They've watched hearings on television replace actions that could have been taken. They watched campaign after campaign promise to fix the issues that we're facing, and then governing that never delivered. And the most dangerous sentiment in this country grew louder. They believe that politicians don't live like us, that they don't listen to us, and that they do not fear us. Folks, that last one matters more than anything. They do not fear us. They don't fear us. Politicians don't fear us. Because here's the deal. Democracy only works when leaders fear the voters, fear that they'll be turned away, fear that they'll be sent home, fear that they'll be retired. It only works when they fear the voters more than they fear the donors, more than they fear the parties, more than they fear the agendas, more than they fear the platforms. In 2025, It's like Americans concluded that fear that politicians should have between people and elected official is gone. That love doesn't live here anymore. Let me say something unpopular, but true. Americans are angry for good reasons. They're angry because they played by the rules and the rules changed. They're angry because accountability feels selective. They're angry because sacrifice feels one-sided. Folks, anger doesn't mean extremism. No matter how much they want to try to paint these angry American this or angry liberal this or angry progressive this. There's some angry people in rural America. There's some angry people on the conservative side of the aisle. People are angry because they're struggling in this country. Anger doesn't mean extremism. Anger means awareness. And ignoring the anger that people are feeling, ignoring the anger that the American people feel right now, it won't make it disappear. Mocking it, won't stop it. Suppressing it, that won't control it. The question isn't whether anger exists. The question is whether it will be channeled or exploited. 2025, this year, a few more days, few more hours. This year was a year that question stopped being theoretical. So, as we near the end of this year, as we prepare for another year, where does that leave us? In just a couple of days, we will be into a new year, into 2026, an election year, another solar journey around the sun. If you're listening to this podcast, here's something you should take into the new year. Here's something you should take into 2025 to 2026. 2025 was not the end of something. It was the beginning of something. The beginning of something that I think will transform America for decades. The beginning of voters demanding results, not rhetoric. The beginning of rejecting political theater. The beginning of rebuilding civic expectations from the ground up, because the future of American politics won't be decided by who yells the loudest. It just won't. It'll be decided by who actually delivers, who actually does the work, who actually hits the ground, the grassroots leaders, the progressive politicians, the people who aren't afraid to work across the aisle for real solutions, the people who aren't afraid to buck party for real solutions. It'll be about who actually delivers. It'll be about who tells the truth, even when it's inconvenient, who respects voters enough to stop lying to them, because a lot of politicians are lying, period. They come out with smiling faces and lie straight to your face. It'll be about who understands that leadership is service and not status. I'm not just here to have the title. I don't just want to be your congressman or your state rep or your state senator or your senator or your governor. I want to deliver service. That's what it's got to be about when we start hearing politicians talk in 2026. Because 2025 stripped away the illusions. I mean, that shit's gone. It's out the door. That people aren't buying it anymore. You can't come and just sell us anything. They stripped away this illusion that politicians have relied on to get them reelected, elected and reelected, elected and reelected. It's stripped that away. If you're listening to this podcast, if you hear my voice, if you're watching this podcast, you need to know that what we do next, what we do in 2026 will determine whether that loss becomes despair or whether it becomes clarity. That's what we're facing. The system won't fix itself. The country won't heal through hashtags, and democracy won't survive on autopilot. But if there's one thing this year proved, if there's only one thing, if you could point out one thing that this year proved, to me, is that Americans are paying attention again. And that, my friend, just might be the most powerful force in politics as we move on. Thank you for tuning in. I wish you a productive 2026. Happy New Year. This is Politics Unfiltered. I'm out.